I remember when my daddy gave me that gun. He told me that I should never point at anything in the house, and that he'd rather I'd shoot at tin cans in the backyard. But he said that sooner or later he supposed the temptation to go after birds would be too much, and that I could shoot all of the blue jays I wanted, if I could hit them. But to remember, it was a sin to kill a mockingbird.
Why?
Well, I reckon because mockingbirds don't do anything but make music for us to enjoy. Don't eat people's gardens. Don't nest in the corn cribs. They don't do one thing but just sing their hearts out for us.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Rachel with Creative Space, back with our next book versus movie by request. To Kill a Mockingbird is a classic for extremely good reason. I first read it several years ago, classic. You know what? Let's find out why it's a classic. And I absolutely loved it. Harper Lee's prose is fantastic. She writes very compellingly. The story is riveting and damnably relevant today. And the movie adaptation is actually an extremely good adaptation. I watched the movie first a few years ago after I'd read the book, and the famous courtroom scene where Atticus is defending Tom Robinson, the black man who's been accused of rape, was I spent that scene on the edge of my seat telling myself they can't possibly find him guilty, even though I'd already read the book and I already knew exactly how things were going to go down. On rereading the book and rewatching the movie for the purpose of this video, I find that story still stands up fantastically. You know, sometimes you read classics and you're just kind of like, why was this classic? And somebody has to explain to you why it was so influential and why it's so famous. And sometimes you read a classic and you're like, no, this is just a compelling story. Nobody needs to explain nothing. This is great. And I think To Kill a Mockingbird falls into that latter category. Book and movie. I love books. I love the space that they give to explore a story. But if you're not a book person and you want to know what is To Kill a Mockingbird about, the movie adaptation from 1963 with Gregory Peck captures the most important themes of To Kill a Mockingbird brilliantly. And the casting is honestly just fantastic. From Gregory Peck as Atticus Finch, the lawyer defending Tom Robinson, and also the father of the narrator and her brother, Scout Finch and Jem Finch, the two kids. He's very warm. He's very fatherly. The book puts a certain amount of weight on the fact that Atticus is an older father. He doesn't want to play touch football. He doesn't want to do a lot of things that the kids think dads should be able to do, because most dads of their acquaintance are a little bit on the younger side. Gregory Peck really embodies both that dignity and that warmth, and it's just really well done. The two kids whom they cast as Scout and Jem Finch were adorable, and they really did a fantastic job. Like, watching this movie, I could picture my nieces and nephews acting a lot like these kids. And the courtroom scene itself with the Ewells and with Tom Robinson was just, you could hear a pin drop, both from the sound editing and from the fact that you barely dare to breathe until that trial is over. One thing that the movie brought out that I did not really think about when reading the book was the fact that Tom Robinson got physically assaulted.
I got down off the chair and I turned around. She sort of jumped on me.
The book places a lot of emphasis on the fact that he's a black man being accused by a white woman, which in 1960, when the book was published, in 1963, when the movie was made, would have been as terrible a thing as in 1933, when the story is set. And the way that the actor who played Tom Robinson handled the scene where he talked about Mayella Ewell kissing him brought home the weight not only of the terror of this accusation, but also the horror and the shame that this woman foisted herself on him like that. And it just it brings home just how much of a victim Tom Robinson is. It's honestly a heartrending and brutal scene to watch. I think the movie captured small town Southern pretty darn well. I think, like, with the partly through the narration, partly like you see the oak trees, all the neighbors clearly know each other. You know, you get the mean old lady sitting on the porch yelling at the kids, and Atticus just speaks to her very calmly, very respectfully. That was very well played. There were several differences between the book and movie. I think most of the changes that they made work extremely well. The book obviously has a lot more nuance with a lot of stuff. The kids get to go visit Calpurnia's church with her, so the black woman who cares for them and runs the house for Atticus. So they get to go visit the church. In the movie, you only see them sitting with the black people at the trial. But the respect and the relationship that they have is still shown, and Calpurnia is still a vital part of the children's life. Different coming-of-age elements were changed or cut out. The movie focuses a little more heavily on Jem's relationship with his father, which works for the sake of space. It's a reasonable change. Things get shorter, of course. The trial gets condensed, and the movie actually toned down Bob Ewell's language that he used, which kind of striking, kind of awful. There was no real time gap between the trial and between Tom Robinson's death, which makes sense for the movie and plays out pretty well. An interesting change, and I don't know how I feel about it, is that in the book, Tom Robinson's escape was, he was like at prison, and he suddenly snapped and made a run for it, just having given up hope, and gets shot to death. The movie condenses that to pretty nearly like the same day as the trial. He just loses hope and runs for it. But the movie, Atticus's dialogue says that a deputy shot trying to warn him and accidentally killed him. In the book, Tom Robinson dies with 17 bullets in his body, which is a gross overuse of force, obviously. Ewell is built up overall as a scarier villain in the movie than he is in the book, but that actually, I think they actually played that really brilliantly, and Alex pointed this out in that in the movie, things are bigger and scarier from the children's perspective than they are from the adults. There's a scene where Atticus goes to the Robinsons' home to talk to Tom's wife, Helen, and Jem is sitting in the car with a sleeping Scout. And Bob Ewell comes creeping up to the car, and from Jem's perspective, he looks truly monstrous and truly frightening. And Jem asks one of Helen's kids to go get his father for him. He's just totally freaked out by this man. And as soon as Atticus comes out, the camera shifts on Bob Ewell, and when it goes back to Bob Ewell, it shows him as a more normal person. And Atticus towers over him, so he becomes like, he's seen as like this small, cowardly person that he is. It's just a very interesting change. The one change that I would have argued for, I think that it lends some depth to the story and to Boo Radley, and it honestly, like, I feel like it makes the line make more sense, is at the end of the movie, after Scout walks Boo Radley home, she quotes the line where Atticus told her that to understand somebody, you just have to get into their skin and walk around for a bit. And she says, standing on the Radley's porch was enough. And that's it. And in the book, she expands on that a little bit further. Standing on the Radley's porch, Scout could see all the scenes that were most important to her during her childhood, like the street lamp where she and Jem would race to meet Atticus, the garden where they would play. She could see like all the things, like all the places that they would have played, where Boo would have sat and watched these children and grown fond of them and made them presents until it got to the point where he would kill for these children. And it just kind of, it was a sweet insight, and I did like it, and I thought that just saying standing on the Radley's porch, she understood him, kind of leaves you wondering, but why do you understand him? Why is his porch enough? That is honestly the only real change I can think of that I would argue for. I will absolutely say, read the book. I think it's got a lot of nuance, a lot of depth, and honestly, it's just fun. Like, you read it, you read the kids, and you're like, yeah, I could see a lot of kids acting like that. And It's a heavy story, very delicately handled. You know, like you described To Kill a Mockingbird as being about the trial of a black man for raping a white woman in 1933 Alabama. And it does not sound enticing. You hear that and you're just like, my gosh, I don't want to read about that. But it is so much more than that. It is about a good man trying to raise his children to be human, to be empathetic, to look beyond skin color, and to see the people. You know, it's a good book when it makes you cry just talking about it. So read the book or watch the movie. They're both fantastic. They both tell a very important story. I'm going to see y'all with something less heavy next time.